Hello, hello, hello. Let's see if I can get back to my editor here. I see chat. What? What? Already? No, that can't be. That's got to be old. Um, so, hi everybody. How's it going? Hopefully everything's going well. Let's see. Popping back here. Now I see my cameras. Hi. Um, so things are a little chaotic here at the moment, but hi, I'm Stacy. In case this is your first time here. Um, and I am going to do some microwaving today on my Murex loom, which you see in camera. Well, you see part of it in camera because it's teeny tiny, and so I was trying to get the camera to be happy. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. Oh, Nicole is here. Hi. Um, so I already got this started, but I'll explain what I did. Just because, weaving, it takes a little time. It's probably going to be a little ASMR today. But like I said, it's a little chaotic in my house right now because I have one sick kid, one kid who just came back from an interview but brought me boba, which was very, very nice. Um, and the interview went really well for anybody who cares. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed that that works out. So the one came back from the interview, and I've just been sitting here trying to get everything set up, and hopefully some of this will make some sense. But in case you need more information on this, I'm going to say a lot of this stuff that I've learned in regards to this type of weaving, I actually have done in tapestry weaving, which this is it can be a bead loom or a tapestry loom, this one that I have set up right now. And a lot of information that I've learned from Rebecca Mezoff, who has her own YouTube channel. She also made this book, which is called The Art of Tapestry Weaving. So in case you're wondering, like, where can I find some diagrams of this or whatever, that'll help you out. Now, if you happen to be a person who is looking to do this on the cheap, there are ways to do that. There are different price points for a lot of these types of looms. And this particular loom is a more expensive loom. Like I said, this is a Mirrix, Mirrix. They have a lot of tapestry looms, beading looms, things like that. I prefer this loom. This is the loom I use the most right now. However, it's not portable, so it's portable, but it's not like you could throw this in your purse and take it with you. If you're looking for something that maybe has a lower price point, what I would suggest, you won't be able to get this type of loom right now because this particular maker is no longer with us. But this is a Hokit loom, and they're hard to find online, but you can find looms similar to this one by different brands. This is actually a pretty decent size if you're looking to make a single woven bracelet or something to that effect, or a small tapestry. This is something that you can easily put in your purse, throw it in like a little bag or whatever, and take it with you with some supplies. Or if you want to do things really on the cheap, you can find online a number of different looms. This is called a Stash Buster bracelet loom from Pearl and Loop, which I also don't think these are being made anymore. However, they do have different brands. So a loom that looks a little bit like this. This is also a bracelet loom. As you can see on this bracelet loom right here, I had warped it because I was planning on doing something ages ago, I don't remember what, with bead thread. So I'll get into that in just a second. So for my microwaving, I use my Murex loom. Like I said, this is what the bottom of it looks like. I can probably pick it up at the end to show you like it in camera. But I don't want to goof up what I have right now because I have a poster board stuck behind here to cover up all of my cords and stuff that are back here. So my Murex loom can be used for beading. and I have used it for beading. Comes with different coils on the bottom. You can see here, so you can change the set. For those who don't know, like the set is like how far apart your strings are, your warp is. So what I've started here, and hopefully you can see that okay. In this purple yarn right here, I've done like 6 picks of like waste yarn. A pick is like a pass. So for those that don't know. And then what I did was, because the way that I've warped this loom is that I doubled my beading thread. Type of beading thread I use is Bead-A-Lawn beading thread. They come in like little things like this. Okay. Great for beads. A lot of times what I do is I will make a bracelet with beads and bracelets that obviously you can see it's got my hand spun yarn and then various beads. Now for this particular one, I literally just grabbed whatever green today. Apparently I'm feeling in a green mood. I grabbed these. Don't know how well they're going to go together. We'll find out. They were just sitting in a little thing here. So I set up 6 picks, 6 passes of waste yarn, and the waste yarn that I used should be roughly the same size as what your weft is going to be. So for those who are not well versed in weaving, your warp, those are the strings that go up and down or, you know, away from you. This. The weft is the part where you're going to be going back and forth, up and down in between those strings, right? So I did the waste yarn, 6 picks, and then what I did was and this was real fun, I took my Bead-A-Lawn and I doubled it, because that's what my weft is, or I'm sorry, my warp is. And then I did some twining, which basically, for twining, I can show you over here with some scrap yarn. Twining is the act of sort of twisting your yarn around your warp. So I'll take a length of yarn and I'll like have it, and I'll go around my first, let's see if that helps, go around my first warp string, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of crisscross these. I'm sure there's an easier way for me to do this instead of just jamming my fingers up in here, but you know, whatever. And I'm going to alternate. So I took the one that was in front, I went behind. Now I'm going to take the one that's in front of this next warp, and I'm going to go behind. Now take the one that's in front. That's behind. Oops, I grabbed too many there. Okay, so then we're going to take the one that's in front, and see, that one went behind. Now we're going to go and take this one and go behind. So I don't know if you can see it, but basically what I'm doing is I'm taking what I've got here and I'm sort of making like a figure 8 around the warp strings. And so now we're going to take this one and we're going to go behind here. We'll see if we can, if that's something you can see. So there you go. So it's twisted around. So to show you a bigger picture, not the greatest, but right there. So we're taking it and twisting it. That's twining. So I did that with my warp thread doubled, because that's what my warp is. It's doubled, as you can see. That's why it's a little finicky when it comes to me weaving in and out, because I have the string doubled. And then I did 6 picks of the warp string. Let's go back to here. 6 picks of the warp string across. So let me move this out of the way. So you can see I've got purple waste yarn, and then I've got the warp going across here. So the first row is the twining, and then I did 6 picks. Obviously it's a lot smaller than the fingering weight yarn, because the fingering weight yarn is thicker and easier to see. So I did that, and now I'm setting up some waste yarn. So the waste yarn that I'm using is yarn that I plan on using in the bracelet itself. Like I said, I picked out these 3 colors. Oh, where's my camera? These 3 colors. So I've got like a seafoamy green. This is my friend Nicole's fiber that I spun. I have a neon green sock yarn, just a commercial yarn. And then I've got this lace weight also from Mork Made Fibers that I spun lace weight. So generally when I do this, when I set up waste yarn or when I'm setting up my warp yarn, I'm going to use the thickest one. I don't want to pull my warp strings in, because I'm sure many of you have probably seen like woven pieces that do this and kind of look like they have like a waist. That's what happens when you pull in too hard, and then your edges start pulling in. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go with the bigger yarn that I'm using as part of this particular thing. So because the waste yarn is what's going to be getting pulled out after I'm done with this particular bracelet, I'm going to start this by threading it through the center. Okay. And then I'm just doing the same weaving pattern that I did for these warp threads down here. So when I wove this back from this direction, I went under, over, under, over, under, over. So I'm going over this last one. When I start here, I'm going to go over, under, over the last one. So it's in the same configuration as the this row that's below it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 6 picks of this particular weft yarn. So I'm not going to count that as a row. That's kind of like a half row, and I'm just doing that so the tail is living behind. And we're going to see how this works, because I think what I want to do, and I thought about this because I'm like, do I want to put some beads on here? I might want to show you some beads on this one. So maybe it might not be a bad idea for me to show you how I implement my beading thread, because obviously you see I have a tail here from where I was weaving these picks of the warp. I left a long enough tail for myself that I could, stretch it along the bracelet. And so I'm going to start this way, but at a particular point when I feel like it's incorporated in, I have these cool little things. They're like bead stoppers or whatever. I'm going to use that to kind of like hook it up above here, above camera. Pardon me. Above camera, so that it's out of the way, but I can grab it when I need it. So basically what I'm saying is this particular thread that I put here on this very, very sad and bent beading needle is going to be going up the inside of the weft on this side right here. So I'm gonna hold it along with this last bit here. And so I'm just gonna weave around it so it's encased in this weaving. Okay. So right now it's currently underneath this yarn here, which is my weft yarn. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna kind of slide this through where this wraps around this warp, and then I'm gonna kind of just very loosely, using my little bead stopper, take the needle here. Maybe I should do this in camera so you can kind of see. So basically what I'll be doing is, like, see, this is the end of my needle. I'm just gonna clip it to the side of my weaving, and that'll hold it up and out of the way. I'm not gonna do it right there though. I'm gonna do it way up here where you can't see it and it's out of camera, so we don't get confused, because I might not use it, or I may use it. We'll see. Depends on how I feel. I did get beads out in case anybody wants to see beading, or I can do that in the next video. Regardless, we're going to leave that kind of loose, and so I need to be mindful that when I'm weaving, I want to make sure that I catch this on the little side there. Okay, so there's my first pick. I'm going to go back for my second pick. So I'm doing the opposite of what I did here. So under, over, under, over, under, over, like this. And I'm pulling it. I'm not pulling it super duper tight, okay? Because we don't want those edges to do one of these, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go back. Now here's, I don't know how well you can see it. Hopefully that works. You can see it's very loose on the side there. So if I plan to put beads, that's where it's gonna live. Because I like for my beaded pieces to have the beading thread go all the way through the piece. So let's say I decide I want to put beads on here. When I do, I can show you that. So the beading thread will go up to where I start the row of beads. I'll go through them, and then I'll go back through them and continue up that same side, just so you know. Okay, so here's my next pick. So making sure to go around these, under, over, under, over, under, over. We're going to pull that through. I'm going to be mindful of these threads, try to keep these out of the way, because I am very good at tangling my stuff, and I usually have a whole lot of ends that I have to weave in at the end. So when you see people in their little woven bracelets, the more colors you have, the more designs you have, the more ends you have. And just think about how much work goes into that. There's a lot of end weaving at the very end, and making sure things are secure. So especially if you're doing something where you're making a bracelet or a piece of jewelry, you should be very mindful of that. Now, this is through trial and error on my part. There have been plenty of experiments that I've done in making these bracelets. Like, for example, the rose gold colored one that I showed you earlier, I would not do that again. One of the things that I found is that, and it's not that I wouldn't weave it like this, I wouldn't finish it like this. Because as you can see, a lot of people use these ends. A lot of people who do weaving use these ends. They have little teeth on them. Well, I've found, or maybe I'm just very rough on my jewelry, that those teeth like to chew up the string, and sometimes those strings will snap, and then you have a very sad situation. So I've decided to change the way that I do things so as to not have findings that have those teeth on them. So I'm not cutting or braiding my threads or my wool. So, but you should always be careful with your jewelry. And unfortunately, I'm a bit of a klutz. So, I don't know how many picks I've just done. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it looks like I've done 6, but I'll do an extra one just for good measure. 6 is a good rule of thumb. It's just enough to make sure that, you know, your stuff is stable. Stacy, why do you put waist thread on there and then you have to take it out later? Good question. This is because in a lot of tapestry weaving or weaving in general, a lot of people will do something where they take their string and they will do their twining or what have you around the bottom and then attach it to the sides. Essentially what this waste yarn is doing is making sure that my warp threads stay consistent. When you start with, I don't know, maybe you can see it in this twining right here, but when I start with the twining, I don't know how well you can see that, but it's kind of squished those warp threads together. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that my warp threads stay nice and even. So obviously it means you need to have a lighter touch when you're pulling your yarn through. You have to take your time. But also the waste yarn, it helps keep those separated as opposed to me starting right off the twining and having those threads get squished together. So it's for spacing. And like I said, it's going to come out in the end anyway. I don't want this purple in my bracelet. So, okay. With that being said, now what we're going to do is, I don't know if I should start it on this side or not. We'll find out. Yeah, I can start it on this side. So, actually, no. I'm going to take this back because I want to make sure that what I need to do is I need to do a row of sumac, and I want to make sure that my loops are on the wrong side. And this is kind of like grafting, right? When you're knitting a sock and you need to start your grafting your toe or what have you, and it's just one of those things. It's the reason why I'm looking at this book so I can remember it. One of those things where you just never remember it, no matter how many times you've done 100 times. You can't remember how to start off the grafting. That's what this is. So this is called sumac. Okay. So basically, what I want to do, and let's see if I can do this the right way. Actually, no, maybe I will take this back. I want the loops to be on the wrong side, and that's always a struggle for me. So I'm gonna do this. I think I'm gonna do this backwards, guys. Okay. Because here's the situation. Actually, no, I'll do it like this. All right. So I went all the way across. I probably could go behind this one, and that actually might help me out here. So like, let's say I skip that last row. We're just gonna go like that. Okay. Now I'm gonna start off my sumac, and my bumps are gonna be on the right side. Okay, so I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna go around this last thread, and let me move this over because the chat's on top of it. I'm gonna go around this thread. So basically what I want to do is I want to do this. See, there's a loop here. Okay, and you want to have this part over this part. Okay, so I'm going to make a loop. There we go. There's our first sumac. Okay, so now we're going to go around this one, and I'm going to move all my tiny little threads out of the way. Let's see. So we went around that one. Now we're going to go around this one. Bloop. And this will create kind of like a nice edge on this particular piece when you're doing your finishing. So sumac is great for that. It gives you like a little bumpy edge. Keep in mind, also another reason why I have to remind myself how to do this is that however you're doing it to start your weaving, you'll need to do it the opposite way to finish your weaving. Meaning, waist, twining, doing your warp thread for 6 picks, doing your weft yarn for 6 picks sumac. When you go the opposite direction, you're like, oh my God, I'm done. I've done all my weaving. It's going to be fantastic. Oh wait, I'm not done yet. Now I need to do my sumac, my warp yarn, my weft yarn or weft thread, my twining, my waist. So remember that. Okay, so there we go. So there's my bumpy ridge. What I'm hoping, because this is the new experiment that I'm doing, is that knowing where the sumac is, this is going to help me when I need to sew the end of the bracelet over a finding. We'll get to that. So once the sumac's done, you can just weave. So let's say I want to go ahead and weave in this color for a little bit. You're gonna just go and back and forth and back and forth. So now I am under, over, under, over, under, over. And honestly, depending on where you're at, like if you change your colors mid-row, like let's say I want to do one color here, and I can do this in a future video too. You're going to want to make sure that your weaving pattern is the same. So like let's say I'm starting from my left hand side and I'm going under, over, and I only want to go like halfway through, so I'm going to here. So I'm going to go under, over, under, and then I'll start the new color midway through, and I can leave the tail out the back, and then go over, under, over. And then when you're weaving those two colors together, you're going to end up with a split in the center, because you can weave back and forth and not grab those yarns together. There are ways you can grab the yarns together, but in general, like if you're just going to weave the two colors next to each other, you'll end up with a split where both of those edges are butted together, but you could stick your finger through there if you wanted, right? I find that if you're working on bracelets and you want to do two colors, then maybe a good rule of thumb would be to do, and obviously I'm not the police, you can do whatever you want. If you want to have splits, you can do splits too. You can run beads up the center. I've done that before. But if you want to have it so it's all one solid and cohesive weaving, you might want to do something like a stair step color where you're doing like, I don't know, triangles of color, or you know, a color for a little bit and then have that color go across the whole row. Hopefully that makes sense. So here we go. I'm going to do a little bit of green. And I don't have a beater. For those who don't know, a beater in weaving is like a little fork or a piece of wood with like teeth that you would use to you know, lay your stuff down, right? I want to squish this together, so I'm just going to poke at it. So I just use my needle when I'm doing that. If I were doing a bigger weaving, I have a fork that was generously donated by the local Denny's that I use for beating my weaving. So that's something to consider too. So let's just say I want to go and do a little bit of this green, and now I'm like, I think I want to change colors. I think, oopsies. Yep, I did that. So I want to change colors. So what I do, and it's not technically what I would do in a tapestry, because obviously in a tapestry you're not working so freaking tiny. And you can weave in ends later. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, it can be a pain, and it is the reason why things are expensive when you buy stuff like this from people. But let's see, is that gonna stay? Bloop. I'll put that right there. I forgot what I was gonna say. But anyway, what I do is I'll go, like I said, halfway, maybe halfway across, maybe a little bit longer than that. And I'll do that. Okay. So now this, I didn't go through these last two warps. It's just sitting behind there. And so I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm done with the green. I'm going to cut, I'll just leave that tail. I would cut a tail if you're working off of something larger. You can cut a tail, make sure it's long enough that if you need to weave some ends in, you can. It's a lot easier to weave in the ends on the lace weight yarn than it is on the fingering weight yarn, depending. As long as you find a way to make it so it's at least kind of secure, that's what you're going for. Like I said, it's a piece of jewelry. It's not going to be indestructible, as much as we all wish we could make things indestructible. Okay, so I'm going to kind of just follow this and go over. So I'm going to have two right up against each other. And as long as you like stagger this with your weaving, and honestly, I'm changing the size of my weft, so it's not that big of a deal, but as long as you stagger them, so like let's say the next color change I do maybe is on a different warp thread, you won't end up with longer pieces. Because the one thing you do need to take into consideration is like this is like stacking cups. You have all the same size cup, and then you're bringing out shot glasses, right? And so you're like, oh, but the shot glasses have to start in the middle. So this particular warp thread is going to be just a shot glass higher than the rest of them. With this, it's a little bit more forgiving. So I like to have it so my tails start in the middle of the row. You don't want to start a tail on the end and then try to weave it in. You'll see it. I guarantee you, you're going to see it on your edges, and you don't want that to happen. So you start in the center, and then you can just keep going. So, and weaving is very calming. I know I seem like I'm all amped up today. A lot of that's caffeine and the state of things. Hi, it's mid-April. I still have my Christmas tree up, guys. It's gonna stay up all year. Let's be real. Okay, so here we go. And you can see I'm starting to get this different color in here. This is like a minty gray with sparkles. And I'm trying to be very conscientious of my edges, because when you are using two different size yarns, it's going to impact your edges regardless, because you are not using as thick a yarn. And so there will be, even though I'm not pulling hard, you can see where I have this bump here, and this, well, this side looks a little bit better, but yeah, it's like I'm staying as straight as I can while working sideways here, and making sure that I'm extra conscientious about these edges. Now, could I maybe pull that thread a little bit and it might cinch in a little? Sure. But honestly, we're doing crafts because we like handmade things. And I think that all of our love of handmade things is in the love of the personality that's in it, meaning not everything is perfection. We don't need everything to be perfect. If we wanted it to be perfect, we would buy it instead. And even then, it's not going to be perfect. Um, we want things to look handmade and know that somebody has taken the time to, spend making something like this. And it's like, it takes time, it takes effort. The way I like to think of it is sort of like a very weird magical thinking thing. So think about your magical practice. Now, I'm not talking like religious stuff, but I'll be honest, everybody in the neighborhood thinks I'm a witch, mostly because my sun hat is a witch hat, and I will proudly go outside and, like, today I'm wearing a green pinafore to go do gardening with my big old witch hat on. I live down the street from a church. Like, I'm sure my neighbors think I'm something. But anyway, so my magical thinking, my brand of magical thinking, is that I want to make sure that my headspace is right every time I make something. And it's not always, but I try to do it. And I try to be very mindful while I'm making things, because I do believe that, a little part of you ends up in every project you make. And there is sort of a magical thing about that. And so whether it's like, I'm going to make sure that this is like a magical amulet. That's something I like to make. So sometimes I'll sit in the backyard and I'll just draw random things, and those are going to be on my magical amulets, depending on like what I feel at the time, right? Sometimes I just have like wacky ideas, like, oh, I'd like to make something because I've been gardening a lot. I'm going to make these magical things for friends or what have you. And then all you can think of is like, like celery people with faces on celery stalks, and then it just gets weird. But think of everything you make as a magical object. So you're casting a spell, and that is what guides you in it, and maybe gives you certain ideas about it, and takes you on your path throughout the making of that object. And people should be more into doing stuff like that. Like, make the things you make magical, because they are, because you made them with your hands, and that's something very special. And I think it's something that not a lot of people appreciate. I'm just babbling at this point, but hopefully it makes some sense to somebody. Like, when I make things, I think of them as magical things, whether it's me doing my rainbow bright embroidery and because I want to make a political statement, or making a bracelet, or like, here's my eyeball thing that I'm making for protection, but I'm just taking rope and scraps and making it into something, right? These are all a good way to, I don't know, maybe imbue, is that the right word? A little bit more meaning into the things that you make on a regular basis. Like, I don't know. Or you could just make some shit. Make some ugly art. Sometimes that's the best stuff. And you do you. But now that I've gone down that rabbit hole. Okay, so here is my green. I'm gonna do that. There's my tail, because I want to have tail. So I can weave that in later. And now I'm gonna go to another color. So let's see, it's 139, and I'm gonna see how much of this I can get done, and then maybe I can show you some beads, because that might be fun. Okay. Yeah, also too, if you end up getting one of my bracelets, know that it's probably got my spin in it. So you are getting a piece of me. It's like literally my DNA, and probably my dog's DNA too. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. I really do think that everyone should treat their crafts as magic. And I don't know, maybe the world will be a better place. I even do that. Like I said, I've been doing some political stuff lately. So I'm trying to take that sort of approach to the political things I make too. Like I'm going to hope things get better. Um and just be magical AF. Really. Also, too, I'm a big fan of people who put intentional mistakes in their stuff. Um, I'm not, I don't want to be a perfectionist. Sometimes I can be that, and I fight it on the regular. So, no, I can't show you guys what I just made because it's a birthday present for Colleen. But I don't know if Colleen's here, but I made you something. Anywho, I was embracing imperfection, and I don't know, people might look at it and they're just going to be like, "What the hell were you thinking, Stacey? What have you done? You followed zero rules in this particular craft." And I'm going to say, "Yeah, because I don't know that particular craft, and that's fine." Because I wasn't really trying to be like a perfectionist. I think that this is the reason why I don't get into quilting. I mean, I'll hand quilt little thingies or whatever, but like, I haven't gotten into like big things, right? Because like, I look at these geometric shapes and they're so precise. And I feel as though that is a very intimidating thing for me. I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about it. But okay. So here we go. So here is, it looks blurry, but honestly, like I can't see. Anyway, so here are some colors. You can see my edges. Granted, they don't look very straight in that camera, but they're pretty straight. For hand spun yarn, they're looking pretty good. So let me show you how I handle beads. So let's see here. I had some beads here that Nicole gave me. I don't know if those are gonna be the right color. They're kind of like an olive color. I don't know. I know. Okay. So, all right, let me clarify, because I don't want to be dissing the quilting people. I very much admire those people who can make geometry look like perfection. I'm not that person. I do really like, there's an artist named Deborah Weiss who makes quilts and does like hand piecing and where's that's over there. Okay. So she does hand piecing and stuff like that. Is Colleen on here? Somebody tell me if Colleen's on here. I really want to show you guys what I did. But anyway, okay. So, Nicole, I made something very organic. Like literally so Colleen, I'm spoiler alert. Okay, Colleen's gift has an element of quilting in it. And I don't know how to quilt, but Nicole knows how to quilt. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to wing it and see what happens. And so what I did was I took a bunch of scrap fabric that didn't really belong together, and I threw it all together and I sewed it. Like it's not perfect. Not perfect. I didn't care about straight lines, nothing. And so I sewed it all together and I pressed it out. And then I got out my quilting foot, like the freehand foot, and then I just started going and like making stuff all over it. It's a hot, beautiful mess. So, and it's not technically done yet, but it's almost done. And it looks really cool. Like, but that's my vibe. I'm not the type of person who I think would be well suited for the geometry of things. Like if I had to try to make like a star and have all the points in the same place, I think I may lose my mind. So because I know that I would not be precise with that because I am like sewing intimidates me. Anyhow, beads. So, with beads, what I do, because I don't have like a shedding device, many people might not know what that is, but I don't have anything that's going to take any of these warp threads and like split them so some come forward and some go backward and I can just stick it through. So I do this very much like you would do for a beading loom. So I have 5 spaces here. Okay. And so what I do is I take 5 beads, which I dumped out in front of me, more than 5 because I don't know how to count. And so, oh, geez Louise, 3, and they're tiny seed beads. Let's see what color, size. These are like kind of like a rosy gold, galvanized rose, 11/aught Miyuki beads. So these tiny little babies, okay? And so I have them and I put them on my beading needle. So the beading needle stays on the warp thread that I wove as the weft, okay? And have been weaving up the side of this particular piece here. So it's inside this. It's just added to that last string of warp, right? So I take my beads and what I'll do is I'll place my needle behind my loom, okay? And I will, for lack of a better term, smush my needle against the loom so that the beads then go, I see that. So the beads go in between the warp threads, okay? So I have it pressed up with my finger against the back. They're still on this beading needle. Now here's where you need to be conscientious of what you're doing, okay? So I am right-handed. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to pull this through. I'm going to change fingers here. So this is the finger holding them. And I'm going to pull this needle through because the thread's on this side. Okay, so let's hold them like this. I'm going to pull my needle through. And then I'm going to roll them down, but I'm still pressing against the back warp, okay? Because what I want to do is I want to make sure that these are still poking through those warp strings, okay? So then where we're going to go from there, if my camera will stay in focus, is I'm going to take this needle and I'm going to push it back through. But what I want to do is, because I just laid the beads against the back, it means that the thread is just on the back of these. So if I let this go right now, and I could, I don't think I want to because in these tiny little beads, but if I let these go, they're just going to fall off the back because it's not woven in between. It's just pressed against the back of these warp threads. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go back through these beads again, but I'm staying on the front of the warps. Now I can do that. And what I've done now is I just press the beads against it, put that thread through the back, and because the act of my pressing my finger against the beads push them forward, when I thread my needle back through, it's now on the front side of the warp. And so basically what that's doing is encasing those beads by going around the back and then coming back around the front of these things. So the beads themselves are not on the warp at all. They're on the weft. And there you go. That's it. They're there. They're not going to fall through. You're golden, right? It's super duper easy. The issue is You want to make sure that you're applying enough pressure because you want to take it and just the fact that you're going behind the loom means that your thread's on the back. And then when you push them through with your finger and you hold them in place like that and you pass the needle back through, your thread is on the front. So now they're stuck there. There you go. And then what I can do is I can take my crazy, because obviously you can see I have a lot of ends here, right? Take my crazy thing and like I only want to do one row of beads. I'll just go ahead and clip that back up to the top up here. Okay. And then I'll take my yarn and I'll just go back. And now I'm going to have beads in the center of this particular color. And you can do it either way. Like I'm looking here and I'm like, oh, maybe that end doesn't look good because it looks like it's not passing in front or going around the beads. Oop, whoopsies. Maybe because I did something here. I've also done things where I might do like 2 rows of beads. And then, oh crap, there you go. Like I've done 2 rows of beads. Now my thread's on this side. Okay. That's fine. Then what you do is you just clip the thread on that side and you start weaving that thread that you're using to hold the beads, the warp threads, that you had woven in at the beginning. Just then start weaving it up the inside of the opposite side of the warp. So instead of like weaving it in here, if I did 2 rows of beads, I'd be weaving it and including it in this side. Whatever side you're on, it doesn't really matter. They're so thin that you can't really tell. So like I said, this thread, when I passed it right back over, looked a little funny. And I don't know if you can really see because my camera does not love me. But I ended on the back, like behind, under this warp thread here. I'm going to maybe change up my weaving pattern. And so now I'm going to weave on the front. So it's going over this one. And then you can see I've now just encased that end warp thread. Instead of just having this fall behind both, it's now there. So, you know, keep an eye on your stuff depending on where you weave. Because I've been known to change up weaving patterns, or maybe I might go over 2, under 2, over 2 for things, depending on how I feel. Now, if you look at this particular thing, you can see I did all kinds of crazy stuff on here. This is stuff that's been sitting on this loom for I don't even know how long. I warped it with actual tapestry seine twine, but I was like, I'm gonna wrap all the threads together, and in some places I'm not. I'm gonna put in some silk threads or silk ribbon or what have you for texture. You can do that too. I mean, let's be real. Rules are made to be broken, and that's the case for nearly everything. So now, there you go. Now, one thing I will say, when it comes to, let's see if I can maybe bring this down a little bit. I don't know. When it comes to the weaving on these, one of the things, oh, maybe it doesn't want to, it doesn't want to move. One of the things to keep in mind when you're putting beads on this thing, your beads will be a different width because you are beading inside the warp threads. So you're not going to have that bit that wraps around the outside to give you this edge here. So you will have a little dip where your beads go through. But honestly, like, it's really not that noticeable. Like, you can see here, I went from having like real thick threads to then going to really, really like finer threads. It's all part of the handmade process. Most people are like, oh, cool, look at, like, I've got a thicker bit and then I've got a thinner bit, what have you. Um, it's just the way it goes. If you're using hand spun yarn, because with your hand spun yarn, you were going to get texture, and that's the point. Um, for some of this, put this in front of here. Like you see this bit right here. Let me see if I can get it to. You see this bit here that's got all these big white tufts in it? That's the yarn. Like these are neps that were in the yarn. I could probably pull this one off. Like it's in the yarn. So like that's part of the charm of having a lot of these things. Like you can make a lace weight yarn and you can have neps in it and bumps and lumps, and it's going to give that extra texture and that extra personality in your pieces. So I really, really love spinning like lace weight, light fingering, things like that in different colors. And then I can, I like to weave it. And I usually get some sort of texture with this. I'm just going to grab random colors and put them together and see how I feel about it. And that's cool too. Like mix up stuff you wouldn't think to mix up. And then also too, if you want to do something that's a little bit different, you could, like, how would I want to do it for this one in particular? You can see I have some neps in it, but also you can see like the center of this piece is woven, and I neglected to weave around the selvage edge, which is the two sides, of your warp. So what I did then was I took a different yarn. This is the back of it. And I just wove around the selvages together. So what it did in the process was it popped the center portion. See this right here? Let me get a needle here. This piece right here is the center portion, and it has like a backing behind it, and it just gives it sort of like that dimension. These are just pieces that were experiments that I was working on. This one actually is one of my favorites because it's got like this cool rainbow yarn in it. And like I said, it had, what is this, 5 warp strings. I did color in the center. I started this one in the center. And then I went to just weaving on 3 warps in the center here, and then maybe tried to like twist them together so they turned into like a cord here. And then I warped and wove behind just the selvage edges in a different color. And you know what? Maybe I can try that next time, because I have this thing warped and it's just going to sit on my desk until I make things. So we can do more beads next time. I can show you how to do stuff like this if you'd like to know. But yeah, that's kind of like a real quick and dirty start to how you do some microweaving. And like I said, yes, there are rules. This sumac and waste yarn and stuff, you don't have to do. I think it makes things a little bit easier, especially if you're working with beading yarn. But like I said, that's up to you. You want to break those rules, go for it. You want to make it so it's like crazy selvage edges, knock yourself out. I think it's going to look cool. So I will leave it at that for now. And then next time we can do this kind of thing where we're doing the texture and different, pops, dimensions or whatever. And I can also show you doing 2 colors next to each other. So that's it for now. And I hope everyone has